finally, I think like COVID. COVID is an event that happened to everyone, right? But for stupids, they think that like everyone in America watched a documentary called like COVID: The Real Truth. They think it has 500 million views, and they think there was like this fundamental event that happened in 2021 where everyone realized it was gay and it didn't happen, and that all politics is responding to that. And one last one, the series finale of the show Castle. That's my answer.
Okay.
Going off what Felix said, the one that jumped to my head as well, Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem.
Ooh, good one.
That's a massive.
I was looking for a fucking flower, but
and
I found some little boss
that came to my mind was remember that person who had a squirrel and like the New Jersey Department of Health killed it.
Oh yeah.
That was like right before the last. I know this is a very recent.
That was like the closing argument of the Trump 2020 campaign.
No, it was Trump 2024. It was the most recent one, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was. Some guy had a squirrel, and it was the health department killed it or something.
Yeah,
Peanut the squirrel. Peanut the squirrel. That is a North Star event.
Yeah, it became like a crypto too, right?
Oh, sorry. I have one more. This is the one that was escaping me during the initial part. The fappening. Specifically, you would be surprised when you talk to a stupid. They're not aware that like a guy like hacked into those. I don't quite know what they think. It's a little confusing, but I think they think that like Jennifer Lawrence and Kate Hudson were like, "Yeah, here's our pussies," and then they were like, "Oh, whoops, we regret it." And so I think that caused a lot of the stupid. I would say about 20% of voters, people who voted for Trump, they voted for him because of that. They were like, I don't like what they did during the fappening. And you're like, revenge porn? And they go, I guess you could call it that.
Well,
let me look at the pictures and took it back.
Felix, along those lines, the fappening, the sex tape.
Oh my God, I forgot the command.
I think Monica Lewinsky would also be in there, but only in the
dude.
content of this guy's slideshow where it goes one slide Monica Lewinsky, next
I'm just
slide
getting back
9/11.
into this game.
yeah, like Bill Clinton got distracted.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Hey.
Another funny story from over the weekend is.
Why is he over there? That's fucking bullshit.
A very contrived controversy about college.
Oh, fuck this one. I hate this one, man. Like, this one sucks so much fucking cock. No one's heart is into this. This is such, like, sweeps week programming. I saw this fucking idiot's mom on Twitter. She said that, like, her daughter didn't need to put, she didn't need to put citations in it because it's an opinion. Why even go to college? Why even go to college? Just get a loan from the Small Business Administration. Set your daughter up with, like, I don't know, one of those stores for whatever type of Christian you are. You could sell, like, those Christian children's books that are like, my mom almost aborted me, but she didn't. Letters from a fetus. And we could just skip all of this. What is the point of I hate this one. I hate this one. I'm sorry. Look, I am the last guy who usually says this. Everyone knows my first account on Twitter was Andrea Dworkin Groyman. I'm the most prominent second-wave feminist in all of men's media.
It has something.
She's not even fucking hot. Like, do you remember when these girls used to be hot? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean,
some of them used to be hot. None of them are anymore.
I remember when the IDF babes were actually hot. But,
yeah,
it's just
none of them.
Another thing, another mission creep. But this chick's mom is a real piece of work. You said no one's heart is in it, Felix. I think the mom's heart is very much in it. And my favorite detail about the mother.
Oh!
In case you don't know what we're talking about, this is another TPUSA joint. Where basically, some fucking moron got like an F on an essay at Oklahoma University, and now it's a national issue because she was asked to write an essay about about gender roles in American society, and like the essay she turned in was like basically subliterate dog role and highly tautological, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And now she's another fucking martyr. And like we talked about this with Sarah last week, but this is like another like sort of like
Oh, you're over here now.
Gainsification of the American stupid. And by that I mean like, especially if you're a young woman, like the path to success.
Because of the way I went in.
Sort of like the TPUSA just
you can tell how well this is going to go.
Train. Like I said, the Heritage Foundation will give you hundreds of thousands of dollars. They'll pin a medal on you for failing English class.
I probably shouldn't just start with that.
Highly promote and sort of get on the cross and just sort of like bear your absolute humiliation to the world of like advertising.
Seems like I could just juggle him if I were
embarrassing happening to you, and then asking, just being like, isn't it so bad that this happened to me? Yeah, but it's just sort of like what I mean is this public sharing and advertisement of your own stupidity or failure to do something.
At least with Riley Gaines, there was like, it's like about the central activity that was taking place, right?
Yeah.
With this, it's that she was in one of those highly remedial, hooked on phonics classes that they have for red shirt tennis play, kids who get a scholarship for tennis and never compete, like this girl was. And the professor was trans, and they were like,
even though I have that.
Write an opinion essay about which day of the week is the best, Athlete essays. The type of stuff that Travis Kelce, his master's
They probably won't. Maybe they can help.
What are the best numbers? And so she set out to write it, and her essay was like, I think transgenderism is wrong because there's biology. Like, it's submental doggerel. But 10 years ago, would be like citations in it, There would be like some attempt to make some sort of like scientific.
This could also help, maybe. Oh, my bad. Get out of here. Damn it. Oh, that could also be helpful. Give these. It gets me. Oh, this could help. Pass straight through it though, if it doesn't deflect off and kind of not it. Yeah. I don't know how quickly this goes. Right now? No. Oh, does it restart as soon as you get hit? That would make it useless on a boss. Feels pretty useless. Oh no, it's actually taking some hit. Is it actually? I don't know. Anyway, fuck that. Both of those, fuck that. Actually, might be useful for healing. I've never used that before. So it is hard to get soul, like, soul. With. How fast is this? Oh fuck! I'm not back to the bed. Fuck! Ow! I fucked. Damn it! This sucks. Oh my god! How do I dodge that? Fuck! Okay, maybe I should. I hate this game. Fucker. Oh god! Okay, fuck this. God damn it. Dude, I'm fucked. Can't tell if that hit him or not. Damn it! I don't know if it's worth trying to heal. Can't dodge through it. Ooh, would this work? Aw, god damn. Oh. I don't know how I'll be able to tell if it bounces back more. Hope it'll let me jump if it works. Damn it! Okay. And this time, friend. Hey. Damn it! I'm fucked. I'm fucked. Oh, so mean. Oh, come on. I don't know if the recoil is doing anything else. But... H might help. There has to be something. If I can remember to use spells, that might, but I never do. I mean, no. Does this do anything? I don't remember to do spells. Very good for. We'll just do these. If I fuck it up again, I'll try that. Doesn't this, like, hurt things with the stink around you? Wouldn't that how it works? Ow. I have to take it seriously. Okay. Shit. He's only attacking from the side, what the fuck? Shit, I'm so fucked. I'm so done. I can't do this. Okay, I'm fucked. Stop. Oh! Fucking finally. Stranger, you're... Stranger. Make me when... Cool. Got like a mark to or like miles across something. I don't know what else to do with. I'm trying to figure out where else I need to go in the game without looking it up. Okay. But it's been like over a... Trying to... Like things I needed to get. Fuck. So yeah, there's stuff like up there. And I need to do the delicate flat path. That's how... Need to get my marker again so I can go back to the flower. Path 3. There, right. Okay, I'll take them. I thought I could clear a path if I didn't sleep at a bench, but the enemies do Oh, I have to find them. Make sure I know where the grave... I'm gonna go back to... Again, it's been too long since I played this. The... And, like, get through... Can't take any damage. God damn it. I shouldn't be trying. Shit. God damn it. Okay, no, stop. Shut up. That's, okay, hold on. That's the gravestone, so I need to get really good at that. Right now. I need to be able to do that flawlessly. I don't care if I die. It's... Oh fuck, I do have... As far as the dash... God damn it, it's been too long. Okay. Oh, I could try to get up there. God damn it. Ah. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Okay. No! I should try to practice my grave again. Maybe I might be cooked. Wait, fuck. Okay. God damn it. I keep forgetting I can't jump through them. God, that's fucking tough. There must be a better way to... Nope. Oh, this is the way. This is it. Okay. Okay, yeah. I want to wait a lot longer than I need to. Damn it. Getting a little carried away. Shit! I swear to God, I'm gonna try to move it and get stuck right there. It's gonna suck. Ah, I sneezed. Oh my God. God damn it. Shit. I don't want to be anyway. Let's go. Oh, wait. You ring the bell. I've almost forgotten the station exists. Wait. Oh, that's it. It's been a while since I played. I was thinking maybe I should keep doing other bullshit for a while. Try this since it has been a while. Like, even 9. Like, I'm not used to not having a parry. It's weird. Okay, wait. How much do I need for... $1,200! Ugh! Never to do that. And my cookies. Classic millennial couple. Oh wait, I can fight? Do I get the spirit stuff if I fight? Or is it bad? I shouldn't do it. I can find a bench. Yeah, I'm probably have already tried that. However, I have the blast. I can blast. Can you do that when you're carrying? I doubt you can. Maybe. No, no, no. No, no, that is the right way. Fuck. Okay, I need to start playing a lot more carefully if I'm gonna try this, actually. I am not in, like, the headspace to be doing that. It's, like, really late, I'm getting ready to go to bed, I'm in, like, party mode. You know. Letting loose. Not a party person. If I get spirit, if I complete this. Guess I should try it. Nihon? Yo. I'm not panic, but I have an aunt who's. I know that's not what that said. Yeah, I can. Looking for like big things. It doesn't say. Fuck. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay, but can I do the blast? Can I do the blast thingy? Also, if it gets destroyed, can I come back and retry it? Or is it just over? Assuming it's not that. That'd be. Yeah, it can't be. Actually, I'm just gonna assume it is. It's that way. There's no fucking way I'm gonna do this. Oh, this is such a fucking ridiculous task. Jesus Christ. Oh no. God damn it. Wait, I thought it says that it automatically sets the save point to there, right? When you get crazy, I'm gonna see. Or when you start the quest, it's yeah, we'll see. Before. Oh damn. Okay, so you can just keep doing it. But it's equally sacred and fragile. Okay, so you can't clear a path though. I'll try that again if it works. I don't really care about losing. Oh fuck, I don't want. Like ghosts fucking hit on me, and I'm like by that, like not take the. I get hit by my own ghost. That's gonna. Like God damn it! I'm making a self-fulfilling prophecy right now. Oh, do I not even have a ghost? That's actually fine. A lot of pressure. I do this. Flower's fine, right? The flower get in. Oh fuck, I'm not gonna be able to avoid the explodey guys. God damn, I hate this game. And if you sit at a bench, are you fine? Like that should technically save me there, right? Delicate flowers. Okay, so I should be able to relive it. Hopefully. Maybe. Not gonna count on it. We'll see. Oh, I didn't even know it worked. Oh no, they're not the ones that have the... Shit. They're a bird. That was pretty close. Okay, again, I should be able to reload. No, if I reload, if I like quit and reload, it's gonna make me, it knows, doesn't it? Going to Fog Canyon. Oh fuck, I'm gonna die. Oh my god, my ghost is... Why is my... Oh, I did read... Okay. It kinda remembered. But it remembered the flower breaking too. Bro, the ghost is guarding the way to the fucking... that's so fucking... Like, make the... fakes. There's like some item I thought you can do. You can talk to somebody that makes it go away. Oh, you can bring it back and... God, that was so lucky. This is gonna be the hardest part. Besides, you know. Oh, oh, I can go under it. I can get in here, right? Oh, I heard a little. Dude, I'm gonna so die at the end. I'm so fucking mad. I like already know what's gonna happen. Oh, I'm gonna die before the end. I forgot about this. Fucking fuck, I'm so I get a bench here anywhere. I don't think it would. my god! Is he going lower? Oh, fuck, it's in the worst place. I get pretty soon. Dude. Oh, this sucks. Quiet. That's it. Oh my god, that was so fucking close. Fuck me, man. You fucker. I don't want to fight you. Go away. Right. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Major fucking success. Holy shit, I can't believe I did that. One try. One fucking try. I'm so glad. I really thought I was gonna choke on that last one. I thought I was gonna choke so bad. Oh my god. Oh, jeez. Thank god. I don't know what the significance. Or no, technically 2 tries. Definitely did get hit, like, right at the beginning, right? Doesn't matter anymore! Oops. Oh, you heal. Okay, wow. So now where? Oh, there's up there. I haven't been, maybe. I'll check that. god. Oh, hey, what's up, buddy? Ow. Oh. Okay, I can't go through that easily. I didn't realize this was gonna be a whole thing. What the fuck? Damn! Wait, what? I'm all the way back here. Damn. Okay, okay. Reassess. How am I gonna get through there? I can't reach it from there. Probably Dirtmouth would be the fastest to get to this. Maybe. Ow. Yeah, I remember that. Oh, hey. Well, no. Thank you. Ow, ow.
Muma, Desiree? Okum Sanjo.
Jala, Monek.
Heard a party. Ow! Oh. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I got rid of. I didn't know I would do that. Made the decision. Go away. Where's the way down to the... Yeah, one of these, right? Inside of the map, guys. Hey. Oh no, it's here. Oh. Wait. The fuck? Have I done this before? What the fuck? Oh my god, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna lose all my, whatever shit besides this. I guess I could quit. I don't know if that works or not. But I don't want to do that. Happen. Good to know though. It's good to know that there's like I'm looking for all this shit. Come back and do it. Assuming that my wait, do ghosts? I don't remember how that works. I'm right, never mind. Fun. Damn it. Fuck. Oh, god damn it. Alright, am I fucked? I did this so well just a second ago. I keep fucking that one up. Okay, I'm fucked. It's all over. I had the dash distance down. I thought. It. Enough to get through that whole delicate flower sequence. Jesus. Damn it. God damn it, dude. I'm fucked. I'm so fucked. It's so over. Okay, I have to quit. I literally have to quit. No way. No shot. Okay, I'm gonna pay really.
Fucking, this was more like a 60. Whenever Trump would tweet something where it's like,
I just finished listening to President Trump's press conference down at Mar-a-Lago describing the bombing and the kidnapping of President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. And it was so much more insane than I even could have imagined that we had to do another breaking news segment to break down what was said and what was announced in this press conference. The TLDR here is that he announced we, as in the United States of America, are going to be running Venezuela, at least for a time. He did not rule out that that time period could be years, did not rule out that could involve direct boots on the ground, additionally threatened other countries to include Cuba and Colombia. Just absolute insanity, talked about the way that our oil companies are going to exploit the resources in Venezuela, talked about how we are going to rebuild Venezuelan infrastructure. So wanted to go ahead and bring you a series of these clips. Our friend from Dropsite may be joining us as well at some point if he's able, but let me go ahead and pull up these first couple where he is talking about how we are going to run Venezuela. Take a listen.
We're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place.
And in case you didn't think that, in case you thought, oh, maybe he's just speaking off the cuff, he doesn't really mean it. No, here he is repeating the same thing even more clearly, that we are going to run the country until some sort of power transition occurs. Here you go.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
Now, what does this actually mean? No one really knows. He was asked a series of questions about, okay, who? What are we talking about? Who is going to be, are there going to be boots on the ground? What is this going to look like? Not a lot of answers were forthcoming. However, he did seem to indicate basically Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and the U.S. military are effectively going to be in charge of running Venezuela for the immediate future. Also, I mean, it's possible we still have assets on the ground there. I don't think that any of that is really clear. But here's what he had to say in response to the question of, like, okay, what do you mean we are going to be running Venezuela?
Country, are you going to designate a U.S. official to coordinate?
It's all being done right now. We're designating people. We're talking to people. We're designating various people, and we're going to let you know who those people are.
That would run Venezuela.
Well, it's largely going to be, for a period of time, the people that are standing right behind me. We're going to be running it. We're going to be bringing it back. It's a dead, I talk about a dead country. A year and a half ago, we were a dead country.
So people standing behind him being Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and military leader General Kane, Raisin Kane, was there as well. So that seems to be who he is indicating would, quote unquote, run the country. There was also a question that was asked about, well, right now, Maduro's vice president has been sworn in as president. She is in charge. Like, you kidnapped Maduro, but his vice president and the rest of his administration is still there and still in charge of the country. So what's going on with that? And he seemed to indicate that Marco Rubio had spoken with her and that she was open to working with the U.S. and serving effectively as our puppet or easing the transition or something of that nature. Let me go ahead and pull this one up for you because this is a significant piece. Let's see. Here's the one.
Weren't going to back Machado to come back and be the opposition leader in your Fox and Friends interview. And then you also mentioned the...
By the way, at another point, he was asked about Machado, who was just given the Nobel Peace Prize, unbelievably, and who was seen as a potential puppet leader, and he poured a lot of cold water on the idea, saying she didn't have support of the people. So now he's going to be asked about the vice president who is currently in charge.
Vice president of Venezuela. Are you going to work with vice president of Venezuela, or how do you foresee the relationship going?
I understand she was just sworn in, but she was, as you know, picked by Maduro. So Marco's working on that directly. Just had a conversation with her, and she's essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again. Very simple.
So, indicating that she's willing to collaborate with the Trump regime, with...
Don't you remember the classic America First tagline, make Venezuela great again?
Rulers of this country. I don't even know what to say, guys. I mean, this is actually even more insane than Iraq. And if you thought it was some kind of a weird leftist conspiracy theory that what we're really after is the oil, Trump talked about that quite explicitly as well, which is not a new thing.
He'd already done that, yeah.
Administration officials and other Trump allies have been talking about the oil resources as a major motivator for this illegal offensive war, and he spoke to that as well. He talked about how our oil companies are going to go in and they're going to spend billions of dollars and they're going to make all kinds of money here. So let's go ahead and take a listen to what he said about the oil companies and how they will profit from this action.
As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world,
Jesus Christ.
Spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country. And we're...
He was asked at one point also about how China and
For the
Russia
country.
feel about this, given that they have interests in Venezuela, and he said, "Oh, well,
Making money for the
I
country.
think it'll be fine, no problem."
The whole
He
country,
was
guys.
also
Everyone
asked about what's going on with Russia and
We're gonna
Ukraine,
make money.
indicated that he was frustrated with Putin. But that's where we are. Trump has said we are running Venezuela, so this was a direct regime change operation. That we may well have boots on the ground. That this could last for years, that we are going to rebuild Venezuela's infrastructure and quote unquote make Venezuela great again.
That's insane. Insane that he said that.
In
literally
other countries in the region, specifically Cuba and Colombia, he spoke about, which no one should be surprised about, since not only is this about seizing the resources and exploiting the resources of Venezuela, this is also a, frankly, multi-decade project to destroy any sort of left-wing government in the region. And Venezuela being a key part of that fantasy, which is now becoming reality, with Marco Rubio there as Secretary of State. Let me go ahead. Jose Luis Granado Ceja has joined now from JobSite. Let me go ahead and let him into the room and we can get his reaction as well. Jose Luis, great to have you again. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I played some of the clips of Trump saying we're going to run Venezuela, seeming to indicate specifically like Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, apparently. Saying we may have boots on the ground, saying that this could last years, saying also that that Rubio had reached out to the vice president, Maduro's vice president, who has now been sworn in as president of the country, and that she seemed open to some sort of collaboration. I mean, what is your reaction to all of this?
God damn it!
The first one is quite a surprise there. I had speculated earlier that they would use this as an opportunity to kind of
I'm so fucked. I'm fucked.
From this engagement.
I don't have the damage one equipped anymore either, so I can't heal.
This most recent round of escalation.
Getting
but those words from Trump in this press conference, I think, are very, very clear. They intend to occupy the country of Venezuela. That's obviously going to require a huge mobilization of troops. Trump is being deliberately vague or even misleading in his responses, suggesting that it wouldn't take a lot, that it's just about protecting oil infrastructure. I don't think that's the case whatsoever. I think they're in for a conundrum. The Venezuelan armed forces have talked about Venezuela becoming a new Vietnam for the United States if they chose to invade. If they're going to do what Trump just said in his press conference, to try to administer the country as an occupying power, it's going to require an extraordinary amount of U.S. forces. This is going to be a very serious, major U.S. operation right here in the Western Hemisphere. I imagine
that makes sense.
Oil
I didn't want to do that. God damn it.
Of their strategy that they've
used
in
Iraq
and in Syria to try to take control of the oil fields directly, but these are not similar situations when we think about Venezuela. Like I said earlier, Venezuela is a country that has undergone a very long political process.
Fine. You know what?
And even if there are elements of the existing state that maybe break away or align themselves with the U.S. administration,
Is it better to go from Green Pass to there?
Hard to believe, given that essentially you're a traitor to your homeland. There's still going to be guerrilla struggles, sabotage. This is not going to be an easy ride whatsoever. I think the United States and the people of the United States need to be aware of what he's actually talking about. A very serious military mobilization to occupy a sizable country, far larger than what, we saw in Panama. There's been some military analysts speculating that at least 100,000 troops, at least, to be able to try to actually invade and occupy Venezuela. And of course, it's going to be a huge conundrum for them because it won't be easy.
I mean, is this just cope on my part? Is it possible this is just some sort of a weird, chess move, threat, bluster kind of a situation? Because, I mean, and do we know, are there assets on the ground right now?
I don't think taking a leader is a threat.
Do we have any sense of that right now?
It doesn't appear that there are U.S. troops on the ground right now. He talked about in the past tense, there were boots on the ground in order to carry out this kidnapping of President Nicolás Maduro. But we do know that there are at least 20,000 troops nearby, either in Puerto Rico or in all the ships that are stationed off the coast. So I don't think that's enough to invade the country, but that is a sizable amount of manpower there that could easily be mobilized and used as part of another invasion. Trump talked specifically about a second round of attacks, that they were actually prepared for a second one, that they actually didn't carry it out, but they were willing to do it, that they're willing to kidnap any Venezuelan leader who rises to fill the power vacuum, we could say, that is the situation right now, given that we now know that Nicolás Maduro is indeed in U.S. custody aboard the Iwo Jima. Trump also said that he would be sent to New York to face these federal indictments. So that means that obviously there has to be, at least for the time being, some kind of transition inside of Venezuela, given that the president cannot rule if he's detained. It looks like that's going to be Delcy Rodriguez, the executive vice president, but it's very, very odd comments from him saying that she's essentially going to play along, which is very surprising with people who are familiar with Venezuelan politics. Delcy Rodriguez is a very powerful figure inside of Venezuela, a close ally, a confidant of Maduro. There's a reason why she was named directly by him. The vice president is not elected in Venezuela. To be the executive vice president, that she would allow her.
Keep doing that. I keep bouncing my head off of it.
I don't find very credible.
So you're skeptical of that aspect?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And not to mention,
I mean, who knows what she may have said on the phone to Marco Rubio in the moment versus what the actual
to avoid another strike on her location, because it's clear that they do have some intelligence in terms of where people are moving. You know, Trump even mentioned that they had images of Maduro making it to the door of his safe room, but unable to actually be able to seal himself in. I mean, this is pretty serious in terms of what we're talking about. What the amount of forces, the amount of resources that the U.S. appears to have used in this operation, quite well could have been her just trying to protect herself, to try to ensure that there is a success.
Wait, hold on.
I don't think that she's going to play U.S. imperialism's game. Not to mention the fact that she has been on the air all day talking about the need to resist this. So. I don't think that's the case. But even if she did, she would be pushed out by the revolutionary forces. No one inside of Venezuela is going to tolerate anybody who's going to be a traitor to her homeland. And someone else will rise to fill her shoes if that is the case. So it's a very unpredictable, unstable situation as of now, and really, really quite surprising. But I will say, I think the point what I want to emphasize is that what Trump is talking about is a large-scale military operation or mission in South America. I guess, you know, I heard that one of the...
I'd like to equip some
reporters asked, how is this
charms or whatever for this fight.
Apparently that phrase can be used for anything, because in no way is this America first. This is another U.S. military adventure.
I guess I could go there.
Outcome in terms of how they're actually able to get out of this.
Let me.
But it's really this part, the part that I just went through.
Talking about the Monroe Doctrine, and they now call it the Donroe Doctrine. American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Let's listen to this.
All of these actions were in core principles of American foreign policy, dating back more than 2 centuries, and not anymore.
Damn it!
All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines. And the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal. But we've superseded it by a lot. By a real lot. They now call it the Donroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance.
Okay, if I fuck up, I get out.
Will never be questioned again. Won't happen.
I don't want to go back.
What do you make of those comments, and is consistent with some of the things that have been laid out in his national security strategy previously?
Now, listening to him talk, I'm not sure he actually understands what the Monroe Doctrine was or how it could be applied in 2026.
What?
You know, the Monroe Doctrine was a policy of the United States that was aimed at Europe, above all, to dissuade them from engaging in any type of colonization or recolonization here in the Western Hemisphere. He seems to understand it as the United States can do whatever it wants in the Western Hemisphere, that this is its exclusive sphere of influence. Obviously, in practice, that is what the Monroe Doctrine ultimately became, but that's not really what it was intended as. And certainly, even if we accept the principles behind the Monroe Doctrine, what the United States did is not about, containing the influence of foreign powers inside of the Western Hemisphere. This is U.S. military adventurism. It's the U.S. imperialist policy of imposing its will on countries through might. It's interesting, we heard comments there from U.S. officials about how peace through strength. There's nothing.
Definitely, I'm gonna need the damage one.
This is a very violent act. They're like.
How am I supposed to dodge that?
Reports of casualties as a result, and of course,
I jump over it. Oh fuck! I can probably jump.
Sitting president is just absolutely extraordinarily violent act, and so this is not peace whatsoever. And I hope that there's pushback from U.S. policymakers, from lawmakers, from the U.S. public around this. That's not what's happening here. The U.S. once again has reminded us, because this is something that the peoples of Latin America are very much aware of, that they are willing to engage in these kinds of illegal actions to impose its will. And like I said in the other segment that we talked about, I hope this is a wake-up call, because we really have to understand who we're dealing with here. And there's already, as I mentioned earlier, there's already him talking about something similar in Mexico. You know, he was asked directly about this. And, you know, this is the problem, is that, you know, this could lead to a sort of domino effect where the U.S. says, look what we're
I haven't really used those before.
to you,
I like
exactly
them.
as we say.
Let me go ahead and play.
You know, I want to like them.
Bolster your point. Portion where he's talking about Cuba.
But like whenever I clip them,
in this particular response, let's listen to that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, is your message here for Cuba and Diaz-Canel?
Well, Cuba's an interesting case. Cuba is, you know, not doing very well right now. That system has not been a very good one for Cuba. The people there have suffered for many, many years. And I think Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about, because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly failing nation. And we want to help the people. It's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba, but we want to also help the people that were forced out of Cuba and living in this country. Do you want to say something about that, Marco?
I'm sure Marco does want to say something about that, doesn't he? At another part, though, he was asked about Colombia as well. He talked about Mexico. I mean, that's just the whole other wild level of insanity. It's hard for me to wrap my head around all of this. And, you know, I mean, I guess the best case scenario is this is all like bluster and threats and him acting like a madman to try to coerce these various countries and leaders. But, I mean, part of this is incredibly deadly real. Not only the regime change in Venezuela, but now the promise that we are directly going to govern it, even if it takes boots on the ground, even if it takes years. And I think this also just impresses upon everyone, and for, you know, those who had any doubt, that this is part of a long time project to destroy any sort of left-wing governance in the region.
Absolutely. You know, one of the terms that I've been using more recently is the strategic retreat of the United States. You know, and I think it's actually the national security strategy is a confession that they are very much willing to admit that the struggle for spectral dominance, which is what they used to talk about after the end of the Cold War, has largely been lost. That they do have a pure rival in China. And I think there is that they need to kind of rebuild their forces. That the United States
it shows.
is not in a
I see
position
it.
today
Yeah.
to be able to dispute hegemony at a global level, you know, and actually be able to kind of keep up with this pure rival. And so that's why we see this pivot towards traditional spheres of influence, and why we're seeing what's happening here in Latin America, this attempt to try to secure access to cheap resources, cheap labor, to pliant governments that are willing to do whatever the United States is willing to do, and those that aren't are going to face these kinds of threats. And that helps us understand what he's talking about when they talk about Cuba and Colombia and Mexico. And like I said, this is pretty serious because of the precedent it sets, you know, and that they are willing to put boots on the ground. Now, can the U.S. really engage in military conflicts in several countries at once? I think that's quite difficult. So if they really do intend to occupy Venezuela, that's going to be a very long distraction and could ultimately define the Donald Trump presidency.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely wild to see. And to your point about hoping that some media outlets and some, you know, political leaders stand up. There have been some, but the Washington Post editorial board has come out in support. I just was reading Hakeem Jeffries' statement, which was incredibly weak, and just basically, you know, did some hand-wringing about the process. Oh, why didn't you go to Congress before doing this completely insane thing? Which, like, okay, that's... Yes, we want you to follow the process, but also let's talk about the meat and potatoes of what was done here. You know, I think that the Democratic Party will be somewhat split, and the leaders of the party, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer in particular, will be somewhat supportive. You know, I think the base of the Democratic Party is going to be very opposed, and we'll see. There's so much propaganda already on all the cable news nets that it's just, I mean, I can barely listen to it. It's so disturbing and so insane.
That's why we need alternative media. That's why we need to be able to hear from voices on the ground inside of Venezuela. We actually just published right now a report on Dropsite News featuring some commentary from a young man an Afro-Venezuelan man who immediately mobilized. He spoke of how both his siblings and his mom were scared and crying, and he said, no, we need to get together and we need to resist this because we know what's happening, and we have to push back against this. And those are the kinds of attitudes that people need to be aware of when Trump talks about an occupying force, about an invasion or the so-called administration of Venezuela, is that you're talking about millions of people who are not going to stand for it. And that's really, I think, something that we need to drive home, particularly amongst those who are listening to this program and who want to push back against this narrative, because you're right. That's what we're going to hear. We're going to hear about how this is
I had to go back to
necessary,
the moth with the delicate flowers.
Consensus
Forgot about
is
that.
going to suggest that, well, we didn't like the methods, but we like the ends, and so we're going to continue to support this. There'll probably be billions of dollars spent on this effort now, and those are billions of dollars that could be going to healthcare, for example, inside of the United States. These are all things that I think put into really clear picture the contradictions that define U.S. political life here. And it's tragic that, once again, the peoples of a global South country like Venezuela are going to have to pay the price, but I hope it serves to wake up a lot of people inside the United States.
Yeah, I mean, where we are.
Probably be useful if I had more
gold
when I come in here, wouldn't it?
Who have seen their healthcare premiums, millions of Americans who have seen
like
their healthcare premiums.
The fight, I mean.
You've seen the Epstein scandal continue to spin out of control. I recorded a segment earlier this week, the Wall Street Journal reporting that Mar-a-Lago was a key hunting ground for Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. So you have you have plunging approval rating and scandal and incompetence on all fronts. I do think the timing of that has to do, in part with wanting to distract from some of those scandals. But I have to think, as the American people, and even some people who are in the Trump coalition, listen to him talk about, we're going to rebuild Venezuela's infrastructure. That they may feel like, hey, we could do with some nation building and some infrastructure here at home. So look, I'm not under any illusions. Partisanship runs very deep. The Trump MAGA coalition was more actually adversarial towards his strikes in Iran and potential war with Iran. There have been, pretty widespread.
I tried to use magic and it didn't.
In the right-wing influencer class, at least, of potential war with Venezuela. I did see Marjorie Taylor Greene put out a good statement, but she's about to resign and she's on the house with the MAGA coalition. So that is where we are. And the last thing that I'll say, to your point about how it almost feels you're sort of like watching you are watching the end of an empire in real time, and that this action and the national security doctrine all is reflective of that decline in stature and stance globally. The imagery from this press conference, when he wasn't speaking, Trump was there falling asleep, announcing this insane regime change war with dire immediate consequences, and he can't even, at 80 years old, he can't even stay awake for the whole thing. Talk about an image of a declining empire. That's it right there.
Although his other officials, Rubio, Vance, they're much younger, and they're very much on board with this same plan. So that part is really worrisome.
They're ready to go. Yeah.
After we finished recording the earlier one, we talked about how I injured my hand in yesterday's
Is that it?
here, and I think it's worth mentioning.
No! Oh my God!
The United States is living in right now, especially when it comes to issues like healthcare. It doesn't have to
My
be
fault.
The United States is
Did I
still
not
the
fight hard
richest country in
enough?
the history of the world. There is plenty of resources there to give a better quality of life to the U.S. population, and they don't get it because they spend money doing this instead. Just as a quick anecdote, as I mentioned to you, I went to my clinic, I went to the trauma hospital, I was served in the emerge in less than 4 hours and had my injury attended.
Terrible.
That's all of that in a middle-income country like Mexico, which has decided to invest in its welfare of the population. That's what you could have if you're able to push back against, these imperialist designs of the U.S. ruling class.
I want people to really sit with
that. Was something.
Here you are.
True battle of mighty warriors.
Country with a lot
so
less,
intense. So climactic. It's really everything I could have
and
ever hoped for.
After your hand is injured, you're able to go
Thanks for all your help,
treated less than 4
Tiny
hours.
bug. You valiant example.
Care
we'll meet again.
For zero cost. Zero cost. And then, it's no wonder that Claudia Sheinbaum has one of the highest approval ratings in the entire world. Not that she's entirely responsible for that, but, that has been the direction of leadership in Mexico, is to actually, put the care for their people first and foremost, which I think is what some people thought when they were voting for America First.
Yeah, it's certainly also what the Bolivarian Revolution was about. It was about redistributing that country's wealth to those who had never been able to access it. And apparently that was too much for the U.S. ruling class to tolerate, and that's why we've seen action after action after action culminating in what we're witnessing today.
Well, thank you so much for joining me again. I've taken up much more of your day than I originally intended, but I'm really grateful for it, and your analysis has been absolutely invaluable, so thank you so much.
Thank you much for giving me this space to talk about this.
let's move on to this new report about housing. This headline here, more than half of U.S. homes lost value in the past year. More than half of U.S. homes lost value in the past year. Just to reiterate that, the story says home values are falling for more than half of the nation, the biggest share in more than a decade, when the U.S. was still struggling to claw out of the Great Recession. As of October, 53% of homes in the country had lost value in the past year, according to Zillow data. Nationally, home price appreciation has been roughly flat, but that figure masks large regional disparities. Home prices are falling in much of the Southeast and parts of the West, while they're rising in many cities in the Midwest and Northeast. Ryan, right off the bat here, what do you make of the geographic disparity?
Yes. So you've got the Southeast and the West and also Texas. Like, and the Southwest, like Phoenix, Las Vegas. So, a couple of things going on. Florida has its own, I think, somewhat unique situation where it's basically anybody who's watching this from Florida can testify.
There's a lot more in this.
It's getting extremely difficult to get insurance, and they're probably going to need some sort of government bailout in the future to just make mortgages possible. Because to get a mortgage, you need insurance, and getting insurance in Florida now, they're like, wait a minute, you want us to insure this house? It's flooded 4 times in the last 4 years and was knocked over by a hurricane.
I wanted to buy Silk Song, but I was like, I don't think I ever completed
business model.
You should take that up with the National Flood Insurance Program, which subsidizes the rebuilding of homes.
Right, so they're not just going to subsidize.
Oh, I ordered the.
They're just going to completely cover it. That's my
comic that you.
Rather than trying to deal with the problem, and there'll be some mediation as well. But yeah, so the West Coast, it's a different situation. That's more, it's getting unaffordable for people, right? And also and as this reporting,
the Department of Truth,
interest rates are so stubbornly high that the gap between what the person selling has on their mortgage interest rate between what you'd be getting makes it so that it's an unmatched market, because the amount you have to spend a month to get a certain amount of home is completely different at 3% versus
okay, is that all? Is that all here? Yeah.
You could develop, and I was talking to somebody who does housing finance policy recently, you could develop a portable mortgage so that you could basically sell your mortgage.
Which the Trump administration is thinking about, they say.
And they should do it. It would require you, because the problem is right now we bundle all our mortgages into these securities.
They're talking about the hollow
mortgage-backed securities. So the bank that makes the loan sells the loan immediately, and they
sell for sure, yeah,
and securitize it. So the people who hold those securities don't.
I do have that boss
able to
putting it off
have a portable mortgage. So you'd have to basically unroll those securities by making those investors whole somehow, or just seizing them. So you have to do something, so that the bank can kind of retake control of it, and then you can move it. Then it's totally fine. You have a 3% mortgage. You want to keep it, you can keep it. You have to move. You can sell.
If you like your mortgage, you can keep it.
If you like your mortgage, you can keep it. Yeah.
Try that line out.
If you ran on that right now, you'd have tens of millions of homeowners who'd be like, yeah, I do like my mortgage. I would like to keep it.
That would go well, yes.
Yeah. And I just want a different house.
Right.
And somebody else can live in this house. How about that? Called a market. Buy and sell things. Instead, we've just completely frozen the market.
Well, it would definitely help with the phenomenon of boomers who
I can fight that one guy's vision
houses that they want to downsize from, but right now it makes no sense for them to sell, and
they'd have to pay just as much for the.
I took a break from the game. I typically, I think I got you get marked as the king of the hollow nester thing, and when you
in houses, which would be great for
Gen Z
and millennials, young families, and they know that would be great for younger families. They wish a young family could move into them, but it doesn't make any sense for them to sell, even though they want to downsize and other people want to upsize. So that actually would help with.
But I do want to try out Silk Song, and I want to make sure.
Right. So, but it's the question then becomes: is the United States capable of actually governing? Can the United States do policy?
Spoiler alert.
The problem is it's been so long since I played it. I don't remember like where on the map I was trying to work through.
On like some type of cruise control. We're just rolling. Like people can have ideas, and the public can have a will and demands, but the government just doesn't do anything.
Aaron Wren, who's a really interesting Substacker, he just yesterday sent out a very interesting piece on 2 dueling pieces in the Wall Street Journal, actually, where one is about the luxury economy doing just incredibly well, which is fascinating. I mean, markets are up and the luxury economy is doing well. So like luxury hotels, charging more money, doing really well. But there's also a piece in the Journal about how people are now diluting their Clorox and their Windex into pennies, essentially, because it's getting too damn expensive to continue buying more.
Oh, I got a flawless. It's on the clockmaker, whatever, in the clock room, that boss.
But
I don't remember what
these
they're
are
called.
2 stories in the Wall Street Journal, essentially at the same time.
But it was only on, it was on normal.
As he goes and quotes this Financial Times story that was very buzzy.
But I got the skin that late.
The top 10% of earners now account for almost half of all spending, up from about a third in the 1990s. The layoffs, quote, layoffs are surging, consumer sentiment has fallen by 30% year to year to near record lows, and 3 out of 4 Americans tell pollsters that the economy is in fair or poor shape. And they say the share of Americans who describe themselves as middle class has dropped from 85% a decade ago to 54%. Over 40% of Americans consider themselves lower or working class. And so that's, there's a lot that you could read into how we describe ourselves. It was true for years that most Americans, whether they were middle class or not, would describe themselves as middle class. That an 85% number was kind of a constant. And it was a cool thing, actually, about the US, that even people who weren't middle class were kind of aspirationally middle class, or they felt like the word middle class described them because they felt like they were relatively comfortable. So the drop in people who consider themselves middle class is, I think, actually very, very interesting. And
I keep forgetting I can blast. I have the little blast move.
But also just to see the luxury economy taking off while people are literally being squeezed so much that they are diluting Windex to get more out of it. Now, some of you penny pinchers have always done that. That's entirely fair. But more and more people
people doing it, yeah.
Yeah, because the cost of living.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, timekeeper.
And now half of home prices around the country.
Yeah,
and
tactics for
what's so
sure.
Scary about the stat that you're talking about there, 10%, the top 10% accounting for 50% of the consumption, is that there's always been this hope among people that, okay, our elites, our betters, do not care about us. But they need us because we're a consumer economy. And so they will take some baseline minimum level of care of the people, whether it's UBI or some other, we haven't figured out how they're gonna actually do this.
Oh wait, did you see me? Were you here when I did the delicate flower? That was pretty, I can't believe I actually made that.
They need the people to take care of them by fueling the consumer economy.
Right.
But if you can fuel the consumer economy just with luxury goods, then all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute, what if they don't need us?
Yeah.
So if 10% can account for 50% of the purchase,
I went so fucking slow.
What if that 10% just 10% can't buy everything, but they could push that up to maybe 70, 75%, and then the 10% underneath them could account for another 10-15% of the purchasing.
Like I said, it's
So
been
you wind
forever
up with,
since
like,
I don't remember
the top
exactly right.
1% consuming most of the economy. And so then if you're a consumer, economy, well, these 1 in 5 people are actually still buying stuff. So maybe we don't actually have to do a UBI or actually take care of the bottom 80%, other than through surveillance and repression.
Yeah.
And distraction and authoritarianism and
Oh, wait, here we go.
Maybe let's just deliver them that and see if that's enough. And if you need to, like, just keep them alive, you can give them, you can expand SNAP benefits.
And so Neil Ferguson had a piece actually in the Free Press recently where he points out, this is where it gets really scary. Financial Times columnist Ruchir Sharma estimates that AI companies account for 80% of the gains in U.S. stocks.
Hey, off in the middle of nowhere. Fuck. This sucks. I'll go to the fog hidden when I get.
Ferguson goes on to say, blogger economist Noah Smith notes that, quote,
I'm trying to think of the fastest way to the
market cap is now just
fast
300
travel.
companies: Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple, 2 of which are basically big bets on AI. Ferguson points out the Mag 7 account for more than a third of the S&P 500's market cap. Quarterly capital expenditures by these companies now exceed $110 billion, which is roughly 3 times what it was 2 years ago. Nearly 2/5 of that total consists of purchases by everyone else of NVIDIA's graphics processing units. Ferguson goes on to point out how circular.
Fast travels in the fungal waste. It's like right on the other side.
Pretty obviously a bubble.
That was where the bank was.
Circular, the spending on AI often is, and the NVIDIA's circular investment scheme, which we are going to look back on after this bubble likely bursts, as being an insane way. You're going to look at it like
oh shit, the spiders are going to get me killed.
Organize an economy, but when you see runaway,
watch a documentary about it in 3 years and be like, wow, that was crazy.
We absolutely will. And we're like the insane way that you have runaway luxury spending right now. So much of it is predicated on these tech stocks that are wildly inflated because, again, there's this like circular financing scheme happening, and meanwhile other people are let's put this on the screen. This is C2. Home Depot is predicting a recession based on, Ryan, you found this story, some indicators as Home Depot can be
God damn it. I'm
they said the home improvement chain said
okay, don't kill them. Don't kill them. Stop. Don't stop. Oh my god.
On a an earnings report
shit
from Home Depot, and Home Depot said it was, quote, hurt by fewer violent storms.
Okay, I'm getting rid of them now.
Well, weird way to say you're hurt. More anxiety among U.S. consumers and a housing market in a deep funk. And so when you see, Ryan, the juxtaposition of runaway luxury spending, a stock market that just keeps going higher and higher and higher, and on the flip side, people struggling on absolute basic spending, things look really scary.
I like that side note too. It tells you how damaging some of these storms are. That
I don't need this.
Just by the fact that we haven't had as many recently means that fewer people have to replace all the stuff that gets destroyed by these storms. But yeah, the housing market too. Like when people aren't selling their home and moving, they're going to go to the Home Depot much less.
Right.
I mean, also the anxiety that.
I'll try that one out.
Refurbishing.
Right.
But I need the thorn.
And then consumers just feeling nervous about it. There's also the kind of fast casual collapse that is underway. We put up C3, Chipotle, Cava, Sweetgreen. They have all recently said that they're way down, like by high double digits, 10, 20, 30%.
Also, why are we calling these slop bowl chains? That's in the Business Insider headline.
Come on.
Stop it. That's
good stuff's good.
This stuff is so good.
It's all delicious.
Although Chipotle's problem is they got rid of the honey chicken. But in all seriousness, actually, Brian, you have a theory on this being Ozempic related.
I feel like there's some GLP-1 going on here too.
So yeah, yeah. I mean,
they know what they're talking about because this is their business.
I don't.
They think it's partly.
I know people that.
I think absolutely.
I know, like interior decorating.
People are hurting and don't have the same amount of money. The number of people
they work for like wealthy people.
Some form of Ozempic or GLP-1 though, is astronomical in this country at this point, and the kinds of people that would care enough about their
I think I'll be
health to try to shed some weight. I would assume there's a significant overlap with the kinds of people that would eat it like Chipotle, Cava, Sweetgreen. And when you're on these GLP-1s or whatever they are, you just don't want a $20 salad because
you're not hungry.
You're going to eat like a quarter of it at most.
Yeah.
Have the company.
A giant burrito, you're like, that's like a week's worth of food right there.
Right, exactly.
And that's adding up. Like when Ozempic first came in, like
oh wait, what am I doing? I'm
brands like Oreos and others.
What's his face?
Like,
I'll go talk to
This is hitting us.
Yeah.
People are not.
Yeah.
But I think as it's gone from, it first
I'm gonna grab a drink too.
Described to people like morbidly obese. Now it's spreading to people who, just trying to lose a little bit of weight.
And I think in the economy, it's probably a combination because, to your point, they're way down. So it's a perfect storm for Chipotle or wherever else. But it's also people are really pinching pennies because things are starting to feel very precarious. And if you're, super overpriced salad company, no offense, I love all of those chains, but people realize they can, do that a little differently.
But I love how people are trying to take the model to everything. Have you seen the Indian one down the street from here?
You told me about this. You said it was good.
It's very good. It's basically Indian food, but done Chipotle style. You can get bowls or burritos. Tandoori chicken burrito. It's genius.
The people that do that with sushi.
Yes, there's the sushi ones. Like, guys, what do you?
I don't know. I don't feel right about it.
Yeah.
And speaking of the tech stocks, we can put C4 up on the screen. Big antitrust win for Meta yesterday. I'll read a bit from the CNBC story. Meta won its high-profile antitrust case against the FTC, which had accused the company of holding a monopoly in social networking. What a shocking accusation. In a memo opinion released Tuesday, Judge James Boasberg, familiar name, of course, Boasberg, he of the many contentious
radical
Trump
leftist,
cases.
right?
Yeah, radical left Judge Boasberg. Said the FTC failed to prove its argument. The case initially filed by the FTC 5 years ago centered on Meta's acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp. And here's a quote from Boasberg in this memo opinion. Whether or not Meta enjoyed monopoly power in the past, though, the agency, FTC, must show that it continues to hold such power. Now, the court's verdict today determines that the FTC has not done
I didn't get my ghost.
A judgment so stating shall issue this day. Ryan, these were, interestingly enough, Obama-era mergers, and some of the big Obama-era mergers...
I guess I could go to Dirtmouth and get... Can you go, get the ghost? You have to have something, I think.
Yep, snatch them up, it's all fine, and immediately you started to recognize the consolidation when...
I don't die.
...snapped up those companies. But it was, at the time, the Obama administration was barely giving it second thought.
That was one of the huge turning points in our economy.
God.
The Obama administration was so corporate controlled when it came to its competition and anti-trade policy that they allowed this stuff to go through. It effectively what the judge is saying here is that, well, maybe they were a monopoly then, but they suck so much now that people have moved into TikTok, and TikTok is such a significant competitor.
I did this.
Twitter, and I was about to say you've got Threads, but that's another Meta one. You got Blue Sky. That there are some other options, so you're not the only social network, so therefore it's fine.
Yeah, Facebook doesn't have a monopoly because, of course, YouTube exists. Yeah, amazing argumentation.
Yeah.
They serve, very, just the exact same purpose.
But Trump's FTC is mourning this. So Joe Simonson says, quote, "We are deeply disappointed in this decision. The deck was always stacked against us," with Judge Boasberg, who is...
Deliver that a little too... That was sarcasm.
We are reviewing all our options. But that's an interesting little part of the FTC suit in this case, is that there really was in
I could have
2020 in particular.
I don't think I did it.
Remember this? There was so much... populist
fight,
left-right anger at consolidation, which there should be because this entire segment has been about consolidation basically driving up stock prices to unsustainable bubble levels. And here you see exactly why that's happening.
Yeah, and we'll see if the government has better luck on appeal or if they appeal.
Yeah, yes, we will keep an eye on that for sure.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.
As I record this, Zohran Mamdani is being sworn in as the mayor of New York City. It's an unprecedented and historic
moment, God damn it.
Not only because Mamdani is the first Muslim mayor of New York City, but because it's a...
Eventually, I'll probably will look up, a guide, once I'm, totally, I run around the map too much, look up a guide to 100%.
Mamdani could win. He was up against big money. He was up against the incumbent mayor, Eric Adams, and a widely recognized, if not particularly liked, former New York governor, Andrew Cuomo.
I've done this.
Mamdani's victory has been a major achievement, and it has turned American politics upside down in a certain way. Even Donald Trump appeared impressed with what Mamdani accomplished. We're gonna have a lot more on Mamdani's administration.
I get a bunch of soul energy. Oh wait, no, it's
as this kind of untested experiment in democratic socialist governance unfolds. We have reporters right now at the inauguration who are going to be writing it up for Current Affairs. But
it was really fucking hard.
The interview that we did with
I say that it took me what, like 2 tries, but it was still really hard to get through.
The campaign had just begun.
You had to like carry the flower all the way across the map
to go anywhere
without getting hit by any enemies or fast traveling or anything.
Mamdani, can you
where I am to the Queen's Garden, like
this is a campaign that's going to go out and win, and not another left attempt to achieve power that ends in a noble failure. And he promised me he'd go out and win, which seemed very unlikely at that point. But then, as I'm
gonna go fight whatever is facing.
Incredible things happened. They built an amazing operation, and they beat the odds. And now the hard part begins, and they're going to have to govern. But it's a good time to go back and revisit what Mamdani was saying back when the campaign had just begun. So we hope you'll rewatch this early interview with Zoran Mamdani from the fall.
Wait, can I get up there through there?
2024. Welcome to Current Affairs. My name is Nathan Robinson. I am the editor-in-chief of Current Affairs magazine.
Oh, he's on there. Hey.
I'm here today with Zoran Mamdani. He is a representative for the 36th district in the
Did I get any, like, I didn't get any spirit.
And he is currently running for mayor of New York City. Zoran Mamdani, welcome to Current Affairs.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now listen, I'm not from New York.
I'm trying to figure out what I need to get 1,200.
New York in my entire life. It's an overwhelming place. It's a very complex place. It's a fascinating place. You know it. You're from there. You get it in a way that I don't. So I want you to explain to me. Your current mayor. Now you're running to succeed your current mayor. What's with that?
All right, good night. Oh, you mean? Do you mean Nathan, the main guy?
He seems.
He does have like a weird.
He's, I
like 80, like 50s
put the word
character thing.
Mayor Adams in the same sentence. What record has been over the last few years. He is someone who, when he ran, he promised that he would be fighting for the working class of New York City, but in office, he has used almost every opportunity to exacerbate the cost of living crisis that is pushing those very working New Yorkers out.
I'm gonna go try to slap.
And how's he doing that?
Well, I think, it's, as the mayor of New York City, there are a number of powers that come with that office. One of them is that you set the rent for rent-stabilized tenants across New York City. We have about 8.3 million people who call this city home. About 2.5 of them live in rent-stabilized units.
Yeah.
The mayor sets their rent through something called the Rent Guidelines Board. Under the previous mayor, we saw a number of rent freezes that occurred a few times, where tenants understood that their rent this year would be the same as their rent next year because of just how
is there no way to fight it?
They were facing outside of that home. And yet under this mayor that we have right now, Eric Adams, he's raised the rent 9% in the time since he's been mayor, and those are rates we have not seen since we had a Republican running City Hall. This is just one example, but what I would say is that, almost every time that he's been given an opportunity to intervene to help working class New Yorkers, he's instead poured gasoline on the fire that's consuming them. And I think about when Con Ed, which has a monopoly over many New Yorkers' utility bills, put in an application to the state to raise, electricity and gas prices by close to $70 a month. The mayor signed off in support of both of those requests. When, Bill de Blasio created universal pre-K and 3K, this mayor took his opportunity as the mayor of New York City to decimate the 3K.
What do you mean that guy? Because he does sound creepy too.
To get a new cost on many New York families.
You're on. It's
close to $20,000 to $25,000 a year to find replacement childcare.
New York City seems to have not gotten, in many cases, the mayors that it deserves. you've had some bad governance over the years. I interviewed recently on this program Jeremiah Moss, the author of Vanishing New York, who talked about the process by which New York City once a place to which all kinds of people could flourish became such an unaffordable place, became a place that caters to
that's it.
billionaires and
Block.
their little
Okay, I
pension
get it now.
powers, while everyone else struggles. What happened? You've had a series of these mayors. You've had Michael Bloomberg, obviously, was awful. Rudy Giuliani seems like he was pretty awful, even though he's America's mayor. Eric Adams seems both awful and also like he has a screw loose. Why has your city been so poorly served by its governance?
I think part of the reason is that there is also a lot of money to be made in New York City, and a lot of those businesses that benefit from what is an untenable status quo for working people, those same businesses have continued to support candidates that they know will create even greater profit for them. And we see that with Eric Adams. When he was running, it wasn't just that he won the mayor's race. It was that so many national and local figures, both in the media and political classes, designated him as the savior of the Democratic Party. As some
God damn it.
And be the future of this party. But in many ways,
wait, how do I have to pull it up.
But in the sense of its bankruptcy, where this was somebody who was supported by big business by virtue of the fact that he was so open to influence. That wasn't a quirk that they were willing to accept. It was one of the very reasons that they wanted to support him in the first place. And he has made an incredible amount of money for a lot of the people who supported him. That we all know about the corruption charges and the fact that he is the first mayor in modern history to be facing federal charges. But what I'm really talking about is this is a mayor who described himself as real estate. And what he has done is gone to bat for real estate and for so many other special interests in the time that he's supposed to be running a city for the benefit of the 8.3 million people who call it home.
Didn't he say he was going to make New York City the crypto capital of America too?
He's said a lot of things. It's quite hard to keep up with everything he's said about New York City, whether it's the Islamabad of America or the crypto capital of the world.
For New Yorkers, you go out and you talk to New Yorkers, and you hear what they are concerned about. You hear what they love about the city, and you hear what doesn't work about the city, and you hear you have to. As a candidate, you are responsive to their needs, to their aspirations, to their demands. What would you say are the? I guess the most obvious thing is that it's a very unaffordable city and seems to be becoming worse. But maybe you could elaborate on what you think the most pressing concerns for New Yorkers at the moment are.
I think ultimately it does come back to that question of whether or not they can afford to live the life that they have built in this city. I spent much of last Sunday on Fordham Road in the Bronx and on Hillside Avenue in Queens, two areas that in New York City saw the most staggering shifts towards Trump and even larger drop-offs in voting overall in the presidential election. And I asked New Yorkers who lived in those neighborhoods why. Why did they vote for Trump when previously many of them had been voting Democrat? And what I had heard from them is this same issue, that they felt they had more money in their pocket 4 years ago, that they couldn't afford groceries, that they couldn't afford their rent. And here, in their words, was a candidate that spoke to their anxiety, spoke to the necessity for a cheaper life, that it would actually be coming about, and promised to bring peace to the world. And we know that those are as insincere claims as they can be coming from someone like Donald Trump. But what he did do is diagnose that despair and offer an answer to it. Whereas many of those voters simply saw a void when it came to what our party is actually offering them. And so when I was concluding those conversations, I asked them, what would it take for you to come back to the Democratic Party? And I listed out some of the proposals that we launched our campaign with: to freeze the rent, to make buses fast and free, to make universal childcare a reality for all New Yorkers, whether their child is 6 weeks or 5 years of age. And they said it's those very kind of economic issues that would liberate their life as working class New Yorkers from the anxieties that they're currently being consumed by.
What I noticed on your website is that you've got a very simple platform. We did a whole thing on Kamala Harris's policies at Current Affairs, where we did a roundup of her policies. She went from having no policies to having a billion policies, right? 56 policies or something. We analyzed all the policies, but it wasn't easy to remember any of her policies. One of the things that Democrats, I think Hillary Clinton had the same kind of problem, where you give people a whole wonky list of endless little tiny little tweaks you're going to make, and it seems like you've gone and in the opposite direction, in the kind of Bernie Sanders direction of, okay, let's come up with a short, punchy list of things that people will remember. So tell me a little bit more about how you kind of formulated what you see as your core agenda going into this.
I think we worked backwards from what are the costs that dominate working people's lives. And in New York City, the first cost is housing. More than a majority of all New Yorkers hand over greater than 50% of their paycheck each month to a landlord or a bank, with nearly a quarter close behind. And we're seeing that as a reality while evictions surge, homelessness surges, 500,000 of our school children can't afford enough food to eat. And so to me, it was very clear that we can speak to New Yorkers about the crisis they're facing and speak about the powers of the mayor. And that therefore necessitates a rent freeze, at the very least, for those more than 2 million tenants who live in stabilized housing. And then after housing, the second cost is often childcare. I mean, we are seeing in New York City an economic crisis because the families that leave New York City, by virtue of the childcare costs of $20,000 to $25,000 a year, they are taking with them about $2 billion in lost annual revenue. If we don't rectify this situation, we will continue to lose money and lose New Yorkers to a city that they believe will have their dollar go further. And the final issue is transit. As a New Yorker, you use public transit every single day to get to wherever you want to go. And when I've been in the state assembly these last 4 years, I have fought to make buses free. And we won the first ever free bus pilot in New York City history, making one bus in each borough free. And what we saw is that when you do that, you increased ridership by more than 30%. You decreased assaults on bus drivers by 38.9%. And you bring in, of the new riders you bring in, the vast majority are making less than $28,000 a year. And of those new riders, 11% were previously driving their own car or taking a taxi. So you have an economic benefit, a public safety benefit, and an environmental benefit. And so all of those things, while 1/5 of New Yorkers can't afford the bus fare, it makes obvious sense to me.
You mentioned, plank one of the Mamdani agenda is capping rent. Obviously, I think there is a pretty much universal consensus that, in the other words of another legendary New Yorker, the rent is too damn high. However, you would get a response every time you talk about rent control, rent freezes. The response that's given by many economists and those who call themselves the YIMBYs is when you impose caps on rent, when you interfere with the signals of the market, as the economists say, you benefit those who benefit from it, those whose rent you have frozen, but you disincentivize the construction of new housing, and ultimately you exacerbate the problem. So how do you plan to make sure that by capping rents for those who you help with your rent cap, you don't you are still able to solve the supply side of the housing problem?
You do that by ensuring that this is not the entirety of your platform. So we open with this promise to freeze the rent for every rent stabilized tenant, but we still have an entire housing policy platform put out. And when we lay it out, we will speak about a citywide equitable development project that we have, a proposal that we have to ensure that we are building enough supply that we need so that every New Yorker can have a home, and that we're doing so in a manner that understands it to be a citywide responsibility, as opposed to doing isolated, spot rezonings, which has been what a lot of the current administration's policy has been through much of the last few years. I also think, I'm speaking to you today having come back from a rally to end forced broker fees. New York City and Boston, two of the only cities in America that force tenants to pay brokers fees for work that is hired and paid for, that should be paid for by the landlord. And so often tenants, and I say that as a tenant myself, you may not even meet the broker when you are getting an apartment. It may simply be somebody who tells you online where to go and what code to put in to enter into the apartment. And that is a service, if any is being performed at all, it's a service that is being done to the benefit of the landlord. And City Council is going to pass that legislation today. I have legislation at the state level to do the same thing, but it speaks to what are the different ways in which you can actually make housing more affordable and not only freeze the rent, but frankly bring the rent lower than what it is right now, because that is an ultimate necessity for people to continue.
Let's try this one more time.
You've mentioned the ways in which the current
I think this is the second time anyway, but
mayor is the product of
actually, I kind of quit, didn't I? I quit the game so I wouldn't have to do it.
There are wealthy interests who would prefer that someone with his agenda inhabit that office. Someone may ask you then, as I am going to ask you now, look at the record of difficulty that the left has had at attaining power. You are a democratic socialist. What hope do you possibly have against these interests up against which you are going? I think that's grammatical.
Yeah.
How can you possibly in a city that where the political system is rigged to put someone like Eric Adams or even Michael Bloomberg, God, someone with no personal charisma but a ton of money, that's the sort of person who's going to get into office. What's your plan? How on earth are you going to succeed in this race?
Well, I would first say that Eric Adams does have charisma, and I think
wait,
you have to give that to him.
Bloomberg, no. Bloomberg, zero.
But just to say that's
Adams
not
is fascinating. Just fascinating.
Who win. I think that there are a number of things that give us a pathway to winning, and one of them is the fact that in New York City there's a public matching system. So if you are a New York City resident and you give anywhere between $10 to $250 to a candidate running for mayor, the city will match that 8 times. And so a $250 donation then becomes north of $2,000 in terms of its worth for a campaign. And what that means is if you raise around $1 million, you will then get an additional, about $7 million or so from the city, enabling you to run an $8 million campaign. And I think
that's kind of crazy. That's wild. I mean, that's cool, but how did that happen? That's awesome.
The idea of it is to empower small dollar donors. The idea is to take on the very special interests you're talking about. I think it's the kind of thing that would be very difficult to pass today. But I'm glad that it does exist, because it means that, for example, so many congresspeople who have stood up for Palestinian human rights have faced multi-million-dollar onslaughts.
No, it's too high.
DMFI and company, and you have to raise raw dollars to compete with that. But when you're running for a citywide office in New York City, you have a pathway to $8 million by only raising $1 million. So I think that is a major way that you can compete. The other thing that I would say is that this is a moment of political uncertainty. This is also a moment of political possibility, in that people feel failed by the answers they have been told for many decades. And while there is not a majority of socialist or progressive thinking across New York City, I would say there is a majority who feel left behind by this economic system and the policies of this current administration. And that is an ingredient that could give rise to an entirely new coalition of people who feel left behind and are ready to get behind a leftist in order to turn the page.
Just say it can't hurt that the guy who was supposed to be the great centrist hope for the Democratic Party turns out to be a massively corrupt criminal.
I think
accused, non-convicted, accused.
Allegedly.
I mean, but don't you think? Just to touch on the links with what has just happened at the national level, the massive election that we have just gone through. There is a certain way in which the Democratic establishment has been discredited, that it has, not just through Eric Adams' personal corruption, but through at a national level, the Democratic Party's complete failure to stop the far right. And I think that we're certainly finding, based on the influx of subscriptions to Current Affairs magazine, that there is all of a sudden a hunger for an alternative message from people who seem like they might have a path out of this.
Yeah, I think that people do see the bankruptcy of leadership at multiple levels of democratic governance across this country. And I think in classic fashion, the political and consultant class is seeking to blame the left for the failures of the center, as if it was a left campaign that we just saw come to an end over these last few months, when in reality what we saw is a wavering commitment to continuing to have Lena Khan be at the head of the FTC, a desire to campaign with Liz Cheney and Mark Cuban, and a departure from some of the most successful parts of Biden's domestic policy with regards to his economic agenda, all while maintaining the same line for an absolutely horrific and disastrous foreign policy that has continued to fund a genocide that is unabated across Palestine.
Well, speaking of that disastrous foreign policy and that genocide, I mean, you have been an activist for Palestinian rights and against that genocide. Is there anything? I mean, it awkwardly interacts with running for local office, I'm sure, but
damn it.
How have you tried to? Is there any way you've been able to deal with that in the New York State Legislature? And is there any way anything you can do on issues of foreign policy like that in from the New York Mayor's office, other than change whose flag you raise at the endless flag raising ceremony?
You know, as a state representative, I introduced First in the Nation
God damn it!
charities from funding Israeli war crimes, and I did that because of the fact that on an annual basis, charities registered across this state sent tens of millions of dollars to fund the Israeli settler enterprise.
God damn it, fucker!
Funding scheme.
This guy sucks, dude.
To include units of the Israeli military that have been found guilty of aiding and abetting that very genocide, or they've been found complicit in it. And you know, that is an example of the kind of legislative action that we have to take, because we know that the horror that we feel in watching this genocide unfold is not simply as witnesses, but also as those who are responsible for it, given our status as Americans as well as New Yorkers. And I think the mayor has an incredible just by virtue of his bully pulpit. I would argue he has the second largest bully pulpit in America, and he has used that bully pulpit. When he was first running, he said he would retire in the Golden Heights. When he went to Israel, he promised
weird thing to say. Sorry,
very weird. Okay, he promised greater cooperation with Israeli settlers, and has termed many of the war criminals of the Israeli government to be friends of New York City. And that kind of support from the leader of a city that claims to espouse values that are being ripped up on a daily basis across Gaza and the West Bank and East Jerusalem, that is something that needs to come.
Damn it, dude.
Who is a potential constituent who you meet when you're going door to door? And who is
I'm so fucked.
That makes you go, oh boy, here we go.
Dude, this sucks.
So you meet a constituent and you say, tell me a little bit about your most serious concerns. And I say, well, I tell you, Mr. Mamdani, I'm really hoping you're gonna do something about all of the immigrants that are coming to our city, you know, taking up all the social services. And all of the crime in our city. I'm very concerned that all the leftists want to let people out of prison and abolish the police. And I don't want to return to the 1970s, where I was here in the 1970s and you couldn't walk down the street without getting mugged. And then Mayor Giuliani came in and he cleaned all that rubbish, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I don't need to go on. How do you speak to a constituent who tells you that the problem is, as Eric Adams might have told them, the crime and immigration?
I think the first thing you have to do is actually listen to them and not try and dissuade them of what they are feeling, but respond to it. Because too often what the Democratic Party is guilty of is hearing a critique or a concern and then trying to wave it away with a bar graph or a set of statistics. And two concerns around immigration and concerns around disorder. What I would say is what we need to do is to develop new policies as opposed to the ones that that have been shown to be failures that have been carried out by the Eric Adams administration. I'd give one example. Right now, what you have is a system where we have street vendors all across New York City. And there is a law that requires the city to give out permits to street vendors, but it is refusing to give out those permits. And what it is doing is requiring street vendors to purchase permits off the black market. And so you have a vendor of a halal cart spending $18,000 just to be able to vend. And because of that black market, because of having to get an illegal, having to get a license from the illegal market, they then have to increase the price of their food from $8 to $10, let's say, because they have to make up that $18,000 cost, which is completely created by Eric Adams' ineptitude. And I think that what you can also talk about is you are going to bring order by giving dignity to people who are trying to make a life for themselves on New York City and taking them out of the shadows. And I think to the question of crime, you have to understand when somebody tells you that, you can ask them, where do you feel this the most? And so often what you will hear is public transit. I feel this when I'm going on the trains or the buses, or I feel this even when I'm at home and I'm thinking about those things. And I think it's important to respond to it by saying two things. The first is one of the reasons I'm fighting for free buses is when we won a free bus pilot, we saw that assaults on bus drivers went down by 38.9%. And that almost identically mirrored what happened in Kansas City when it went down by 39% when they made buses free. And we need to bring safety back to our buses in reality and in perception. This is a clear way that we do so.
Oh shit, really?
That a bus driver is assaulted, it is horrific for the worker who is simply doing their job and for the passengers who are just trying to get where they're going. And secondly, I would say that most people, when they're thinking about crime on the subways, they're also just thinking about mental health crises and homelessness. It's not necessarily an act of crime itself. And we are going to be putting out a proposal to create a new Department of Community Safety that would empower a force separate from the police that would be responding to mental health crises, and their responses would be based out of the subway system in many of the commercial units that are now vacant across the subway system, very much inspired by the successes of programs in Philadelphia with Hub for Hope, as well as in the BART system out west. And I think that speaking to these concerns and answering them in a way that is honest to yourself, but also honest to this perception that is sometimes grounded in either anecdotes or reality, and saying, this isn't working what we're doing right now. Here's what we're going to pursue.
Yeah, I like what you do there because, instead of just saying, I believe in defunding the police in many cases, but it's a purely negative policy. It's what you're going to take funding away from. Whereas you're talking about, well, let's fund real safety and let's take safety seriously. We believe that everyone should be safe, but we just don't believe that is done through militarizing the subway, sending men in with guns in to attack someone who jumps the turnstile or what have you. So let's see. To conclude here, is there anything else you would? Are there any other big issues? We've gone through the core, the sort of economic issues. But what is your? Describe to us a little more your vision for what a New York under a competent, effective, leftist mayor could become.
It could become the city that it was always meant to be, which is a place that working people can flourish, that working people can dream of more than simply getting off the wheel to go to sleep and getting back on the hamster wheel in the morning to go back to work. Because what we
oh my god, dude!
Is a crisis where the people who built this city, sustain this city, are the ones who are being pushed out of this city, all while we are concerned about this imaginary
this is hard.
From New York City, when it's in fact the working class who are leaving this place that we call home. And what a Mamdani mayorality would look like is spending each and every day figuring out how we could make this city more affordable and how we could bring a shred of dignity back into the working class's life on a 24-hour basis, on and on and on.
Well, Current Affairs is prohibited as a 501c3 nonprofit from offering endorsements, but we wish you the best of luck in your campaign. If people want to support you, what should they do?
They should go to Zohran for NYC.com
Oh my god.
Click a link to donate, as well as a link to sign up to volunteer, because the only way that we can build a campaign that's worthy of New Yorkers' hope and New Yorkers' belief is if it's a fully funded campaign. And we are doing incredible work to get there, but we need a lot of help to get to the finish line.
And thanks to New York's amazing campaign finance laws, your money goes a long way.
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you so much, Saran Mamdani, for joining us on Current Affairs today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching. This video is a product of Current
Dude,
Affairs
are you kidding me?
magazine, the country's leading independent left print
Okay,
magazine
come
based
on.
here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Go to currentaffairs.org to find out more about us, and currentaffairs.org/subscribe to subscribe to our absolutely gorgeous bi-monthly print edition. Get it in your mailbox. You can also subscribe to the Current Affairs News Briefing, the Current Affairs podcast, or you can subscribe to our digital edition. Current Affairs is entirely reader-supported. We have no ads. We have no corporate backers. We depend on you. So please consider...
This fight sucks, man.
...making a donation to Current Affairs today. We are a 501c3 non-profit organization, and your donations are tax-deductible to the extent allowable by law. Thanks for listening.
I should take the... Dude, no fucking way.
The number of pictures and videos threatened by those filters was actually tiny in comparison to what No Fakes is gonna do.
There's a bill right now in Congress that, if you didn't know any better, sounds great. It's called the No Fakes Act, and it claims...
Oh my god! Ah!
Representative Maria Salazar from Florida said this when announcing the bill. Quote, "In this new era of AI,
Okay,
we need
this
real
sucks,
laws
dude.
to protect
Shit.
real people. The No Fakes Act is simple and sacred. You own your identity. Not big tech, not scammers, not algorithms. But as usual, none of this is what the law actually does, nor is it what the law is actually really about. The No Fakes Act is actually an incredibly sloppy and dangerous piece of legislation that could destroy lives, eradicate people's privacy, and lead to sweeping censorship of journalistic and constitutionally protected speech. There's a reason that major civil liberties orgs are already sounding the alarm about this proposed law. Kate Roon is the director for the Center for Democracy and Technology's Free Expression Project. She's joining me today to break down what the proposed law actually says and why we need to fight back against it. Hi, Kate. Welcome.
Hi, Taylor. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
So to start off, can you explain what the No Fakes Act is and what it does?
So what the bill says is if somebody out there in the world uses your image or your voice to create a piece of media, be it audio, video, or just like a static image, they cannot do that without asking your permission first. So they have to get a license from you or whoever owns that right to create that piece of media or that piece of content and then distribute it.
I feel like if you told most people about this, they would think that that sounds like a good thing because we all want control over our images. And I feel like we're all hearing so much about these deep fakes and people's voices or images used without their consent for nefarious purposes. So can you kind of explain why this bill might not be what it seems? Like, will this affect everyone or just famous people?
The way the bill is constructed, it's supposed to be a protection for everyone, but it's mostly going to wind up, as far as I can tell, benefiting public figures, famous people, and gigantic rights holders like record companies and movie studios who are going to be incentivized to get everyone who signs contracts with them to license their brand new right to their face or voice to the company, and then the company will be allowed to go and defend that right or use those images and voices as they see fit going forward. So it looks like it's a protection for everybody, but what it really winds up being is a method to suppress dissent on the part of powerful people like politicians and public figures who don't like it when people criticize them or make fun of them. And it's also going to have like some really interesting impacts on historians and academics who are going to use this technology to try to illustrate things like historic events, because not only does this give a right to everybody in their image and likeness, it also gives this right to dead people. So dead people's heirs and assigns can assert this right on behalf of people who are dead, and if you do things that they don't like, there will be a method to get that speech removed from the internet.
I want to back up to what you just said about how this will sort of allow powerful people and politicians to potentially censor criticism or parody. How would that work?
The way the law works is somebody creates a digital replica and places it on the internet. Under the bill, online service providers are required to allow rights holders to send notice to them if there is a digital replica that is up, and then they are required, when they receive that notice, to take it down. They are required to confirm whether it is a digital replica, but they are not required to confirm whether it falls into any of the existing exceptions to what a digital replica is. So
most
if
annoying
it's
one.
in a news story, if it is in an academic or scholarly work, if it is
Actually, that one
parody or
is.
satire, the online service doesn't
most
have to
annoying. I
look
hate
into
this
that.
game.
And because they would be on the hook for lots and lots of money, penalties of up to $750,000 in statutory damages, plus more on top of that if they leave content up, they're really incentivized to take it down.
You also mentioned that this law could affect historians
Okay, of course
and
the spiders.
academics. How would that work?
So let's imagine, for example, a college
Literally
professor
fucking completely
who uses
useless.
generative AI to recreate
God,
a
dude.
documented conversation between historic figures.
That was
where
so bad.
One of the figures expressed racist beliefs in support of continued racial segregation of schools and public spaces. And the professor posts this lecture, including the AI-generated conversation, on YouTube. Now, I think we can easily imagine that heirs of this segregationist might not like being reminded of this truth about their history, and they request it be taken down. It is a digital replica. It's an unauthorized computer-generated image in which the depicted person did not actually appear. It should fall into an exception, but again, there is no requirement that anybody, not the rights holder and not the online service provider, check for that. So the odds are that the lecture depicting a conversation that has been historically recorded would be taken down. As a real-world example of that, Daphne Keller, who is a professor over at Stanford, she has a forthcoming piece on the No Fakes Act, and in it, she notes that she used the altered video of Nancy Pelosi, where the former speaker was made to look like she was slurring her words as part of an exam question. If Daphne were to post that exam question online and include the video in it, which Daphne often does things like that, that content could be subject to takedown under the No Fakes Act should Nancy Pelosi decide that she doesn't want it up there anymore. So that's exactly how this is going to work. The incentive structure the bill creates is strongly on the side of removing content, and there are very few enforceable protections for free expression.
As a journalist who reports on AI and deepfakes and things, I feel like often media organizations need to kind of show or dissect some of these deepfake videos to actually debunk them. Would that sort of journalistic work also come under attack under this bill?
Almost certainly. I actually think that journalists
Might be useful
in
here.
the space that this bill purports to be trying to address are potentially at the most risk here. Because
This actually
one
might be
of
more
the
useful.
Most useful journalistic things that can be done here is for journalists to do exactly what you just said. Take the newsworthy, deep-faked content and present it again in a news context for people to be able to digest and understand better, so that they can see how good the content is and how realistic it is, and then understand the ways that they might be able to identify it going forward. But under the No Fakes Act, anybody depicted in that content can submit a takedown request. Just because it's in a newsworthy document, again, there's no requirement that anybody review for an exception applying. It is incredibly likely for that content to come down. And then another thing to know about that particular circumstance is it is then incumbent upon the user, upon the creator, so upon the journalist,
God, I hate
to
this.
file a lawsuit in order to keep that content up or in order to restore it, which is incredibly
Dude.
burdensome and essentially
That's so
one,
fucking annoying.
Not how First Amendment litigation works in any other context. It's usually the person who is accusing someone of saying something or doing something illegal speech-wise who has to go to court. And two, it's also not how the Digital Millennium Copyright Act works, wherein in that circumstance, the user can provide counter notice, and then it is the rights holder who has to bring a lawsuit. So that there's a significant burden shifting that is happening under No Fakes that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, because obviously I feel like the people that are the journalists, the parody artists, like the people online that are kind of using technology to like debunk things or speak truth to power or make parodies, like they're not going to have the resources to fight against any of this. It'll just get taken down.
That is a huge concern. And I also want to point out that this is also going to be dangerous for real content. So the bill pays lip service to real content. It says that real content isn't supposed to come down. But the reality is there's very few incentives for rights holders not to submit questionable notices. And there is basically almost no way for online services to tell the difference between real and fake content in a reliable way, at least right now. And there is no incentive for online services to try to figure it out. So there is, in addition to our concerns for lawful fake content, there are also concerns for real journalistic content that the people depicted just don't like.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this with like a politician, or I did an interview with this woman, Libs of TikTok, last year.
Oh my God!
I did not like, and you know, I got a copyright strike, but I was able to appeal that right away and restore it. Of course, that was not generated, but you could see a world in which the person who's featured in a video like this would just flag the video as AI like this, and as you mentioned, it would just be taken down. There's no punishment, right, for the platforms if they
that's as many as I need too.
Real content, is there?
There's no punishment for the platforms if they take down real content. I think there are, if I recall correctly in the bill, there are potential penalties for knowingly false notices, but it really seems unlikely that we're gonna ever get there given the way the rest of the bill is structured so heavily towards takedown and so much against users' ability to try to get legitimate content put back up.
Right. Well, journalists and other people don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to even like litigate that in court.
Exactly.
And by the time the video is restored, it's likely not newsworthy.
It still counts, right?
People behind this act.
Okay,
and what do you think their motivations
they're not.
The best question to ask here is, I mean, this bill seems so bad, so who benefits from it, right? As I mentioned earlier, I think like very big holders of intellectual property rights and licenses to people's voices and likenesses are probably
I already did this. I just did this.
So in other words, record labels and movie studios and other big entertainment industry players, which probably explains why they all very strongly support it. And if you can imagine going forward, if they don't already have these types of provisions in contracts, there are going to be provisions in contracts saying we have license to your face and voice for however long the bill permits them to have it, and then they can, now that they own the license to that content, they can create as much of it as they want outside of the scope of No Fakes and outside of the permission of the actual person being depicted, and they can deploy their team of lawyers to create so many automatic takedown requests that anything outside of what they make money off of will be removed from the internet. So that's one group. And then another group I can think of is, you know, major recording artists would also probably have a good incentive. So if we remember a couple years ago, there was an AI-generated song distributed online, and it was called Hard on My Sleeve. It was made to sound like Drake and The Weeknd made it, and it immediately went viral. It was very close to actually entering the music charts before all of the digital service providers started to take it down. And we assume, based on certain notifications that we saw, that it was coming down on the basis of copyright infringement allegations, probably from their labels, but there's also an incentive for those folks here to have additional protections against this type of what they think is infringement on their persona. But the thing about that is, and I don't want to go on too much longer, is there are already rights associated with that. There are already causes of action that could be used.
Right. I mean, we didn't have this law 2 years ago, and it seems like it worked out fine. And there are so many protections. I feel like record labels already have so many protections already over their copyrighted work. It seems gratuitous. Do you think that this will affect content too that's not even directly using a person's likeness, but it might be similar?
Almost certainly. Again, The scope of the
Wait,
bill.
how am I
technically
allowed
does
to?
not
Okay, yeah,
cover,
yeah.
I don't think like people that don't.
I don't know if I'm.
really
Yeah,
exist
okay.
or
When I'm
look
talking
similar
away from the
to
mic.
real
Sorry.
individuals. But the way the bill is structured, if you think it kind of looks like you do have an incentive to file a claim under this, because the way the bill is structured, it's almost certain to come down, and that's what you want. That's the result that you want. And users are very unlikely. The users who created whatever has been taken down are very unlikely to have access to the money it would take to file the lawsuit to put it back. So yeah, I do think so.
This video is brought to you by Delete Me. As a high-profile journalist dealing with stalking, death threats, harassment, and more, I know how crucial it is to protect your privacy online. Unfortunately, no matter how careful you are, data brokers will collect and sell your personal information to anyone willing to pay for it. This includes your name, address, phone number, and more. When someone buys your data through a broker, they don't just see you. They see your
1,500.
spouse,
Okay,
your
so I need
parents,
150.
your loved ones, anyone you're connected to. Removing this information off the internet helps keep you safe from things like identity theft and stalking. But how do you remove your information from the web when there are thousands of data brokers? Delete Me is a subscription service that will automatically remove your personal information being sold online. It's been an absolute game changer for me as somebody that values privacy. Delete Me scours
Useful
the
for
internet
money.
for your information and handles takedown requests. They provide regular privacy reports so you can see how much data they found on you, where it was found, and where it was removed. You can even make custom removal requests. Their family plans are especially crucial because when you're targeted, your loved ones usually are too. Get 20% off Delete Me consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/Taylor20 and use promo code Taylor20 at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/Taylor20 and use code Taylor20 at checkout. Don't wait until it's too late to safeguard your privacy. Make sure your data and your families stays protected.
Okay, where else do I
content
need
is
to go?
taken down under this No Fakes Act, does it have to stay down, or can somebody just re-upload it, for instance, if it gets like struck?
The bill creates what we're calling a notice and stay down process.
Over there,
because
I'll check that
online
out.
services are also required to operate systems to make the content that they have been notified as a digital replica stay down. So that's going to mean content filtering, and that can have some significant problems. So for example, Europe tried to require that kind of content filtering for terrorist materials a few years ago. And even human rights officials at the UN spoke up about the free expression problems that that would have created. And US groups like mine, like the Center for Democracy and Technology and the ACLU, came out in strong opposition. But the number of pictures and videos threatened by those filters was actually tiny in comparison to what No Fakes is going to do. And then the other thing to know about content filters is they're really expensive if you want to do them well. So YouTube, in the copyright context, has Content ID. That cost YouTube something like $100 million to create. Smaller companies don't have that money. So that means they're either going to use clumsy filters, or they may find compliance costs too significant to continue at all. So that's another big change in this bill.
So with like the filtering, basically it sounds like any content that's even like reminiscent might just get swept up in these filters and taken down because it's reminiscent of some sort of work that's already been, you know, attacked by the No Fakes.
Yeah, it's going to depend on the filtering tool that's used. Some of these tools are direct matching, so if you only get the direct match, those are actually generally kind of pretty accurate. But even so, the problem there is actually going to be context. So you have an unauthorized use of a digital replica, but then over here you have an authorized use. So you have an unauthorized use in a commercial context where you can require it be taken down without a problem under the bill. But over here you have a journalistic one, or you have a use in scholarship and should fall under an exception. Under the content filtering, even with how accurate the mashing is, they both come down. So that's another big issue here.
It seems like just more online censorship of content across the web.
An extraordinary amount of incentivized online censorship, absolutely. That will enable politicians and other people of power to silence dissent and criticism.
I want to talk about kind of like the climate that all of this stuff is being proposed under. I talked about the Take It Down Act a little bit, and I've covered other laws like the Kids Online Safety Act, which I hate, and other things. But it seems like we're just seeing a lot of legislation proposed that could restrict speech, and more recently sort of under the guise of cracking down on AI. Can you talk a little bit about like, the legislative climate and how this sort of like boom in AI has led to more laws kind of like this? Because it seems like we're seeing a lot of this type of stuff crop up.
We absolutely are, and I think this is not a new problem. Impersonation, faked media, non-consensual use of name and likeness, they aren't a new problem. And in the context of COSA, which you brought up, suicidality is not a new problem. Depression and anxiety are not a new problem. But generative AI, I think, triggers this idea of scale even more than social media ever did, right? It is one thing to think of somebody out there spending 8 hours on Photoshop trying to create a basically unrealistic, non-consensual, intimate image of Taylor Swift. Now you have a tool that can create something really realistic within seconds, and it can be out there and propagating across the internet seconds later, right? That's what I think we're getting at here.
The scale of everything is kind of heightened in terms of like how he's showing the cognitive offloading is greater too.
At a greater scale, it's something we should be worried about. It's absolutely something we should be worried about and thinking about how to address. But
and with like smartphones,
we have to do it in the way we've always done it before, which is balanced against the positive uses of this technology and balanced against everybody's human right to free expression. And that is what I see missing in a lot of the legislative proposals that we see, which are very fear-driven and don't do enough to account for constitutional rights.
I mean, I think a lot of these people in Congress probably don't use AI very often. And there's just so much like anti-AI consumer sentiment. Like in some sense, you have like all the tech people who are totally AI pilled. But then, I mean, I hear this a lot in my own reporting of people that are like, just don't use generative AI and, you know, you won't have to bother with it. And no one should use generative AI anyway, because it's so bad and evil and da-da-da. I guess I'm wondering, like, do you think that like consumer sentiment and the sort of frustrations with AI is also feeding this?
Oh, I think absolutely. And in some ways, sort of rightfully so. If we don't have guardrails around the use of generative AI in certain contexts, like when it's used to hire somebody, or when it is used to determine somebody's credit rating, or when it's used to determine somebody's interest rate, when we don't have guardrails about how it's used or how it's designed in order to ensure fairness in that process, that makes total sense for everybody to have significant desire to do something about that. We should be doing something about that. And we should be doing something about harms with respect to people's reputation where generative AI is involved. But as I said earlier, like, this isn't our first rodeo with this sort of thing. We have had laws in the past, and we continue to have them, they continue to exist, that protect people's right of publicity, that protect people from intentional infliction of emotional distress. There are ways to address the harms that we see coming, the new ones, and to adapt our ways to address the harms that have already existed to ensure that generative AI is covered appropriately. The way that we're going about it is a little bit different, though. I think the way that we're going about it is to attack the technology itself and try to regulate the technology itself broadly in manners that are going to affect free expression and privacy far more than I think people intend or want.
What is the status of this law? How far has it made it in Congress, and kind of what are the next steps for it?
It hasn't made it very far yet. It has been introduced, but it has bipartisan support in the Senate, and I believe it has a House companion. Next step would be for there to be a hearing on the bill, and actually I think there was a hearing on the bill a while ago. So if there was already a hearing, and I think actually there was, the next step would be for the Senate
I could go fight the Hollow Knight.
Work the bill up. At
Just
that
want to finish.
point, that is a chance to make a bunch of changes to the bill to try to make it better from the perspective of the legislators. After it gets marked up, if it is approved after markup by the Senate Judiciary, it goes to the Senate floor, at which point it could pass the Senate. So we still have a ways to go. There is still time to talk about this bill and to talk about the issues with it, and I'm really glad you're doing this as a result.
In the CDT release, you guys wrote that this law could affect children and adults who find themselves separated from power over their own likeness for up to a decade without the appropriate safeguards to prevent abuse. How would that work?
The right that this creates, it's licensable. So you can give it to someone else, and there are special protections for kids in the bill for licensing, but the odds that, child influencers or their parents truly being able to negotiate to protect themselves in deals with gigantic Hollywood companies just don't seem all that great. And the bill doesn't do nearly enough to protect against that possibility.
Well, what should people do that want to kind of express their concerns over the way that this bill would censor like journalistic speech, like historical, academic speech, just creative speech generally? Like, is there anything that they themselves can do to kind of make a difference?
Write to your congressperson, tell them you're concerned, call them, leave them a message, let them know that the No Fakes Act is not the way to address digital forgeries or digital replicas. One thing that Daphne says is, when she's been taking a look at it, is that the No Fakes Act is essentially capitalizing on the reasonable fears that people have related to emerging technologies in order to ram through overbroad restrictions that will harm free expression online. That's exactly right. That's exactly what this is. Like we were just talking about reasonable fears that people have, and what this bill is doing is essentially using that as an opportunity to give the record industry and movie studios a very big win. And it will come at the expense of journalists, creators, comedians, parodists, and just general online service users.
Well, Kate, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Taylor. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. To get your data removed from the internet, check out joindeleteme.com and use code Taylor20 at checkout for 20% off. All right, that's it for this week's Free Speech Friday. Don't forget to subscribe to my tech and online culture newsletter, usermag.co. That's usermag.co, where I write about all of these issues and more. You can watch full episodes of Free Speech Friday every week on my YouTube channel. And if you like the show, don't forget to give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode of Free Speech Friday. See you then.
Building, it pays total respect to the existing building, which I'm the biggest fan of, and that's Donald Trump. So he's just proving here that they lied before they tore down the East Wing. And I just want to say this with the most seriousness that I can. They're going to do this exact same thing with the elections. They're going to say we're going to have free and fair elections. They're going to say that everything's on the up and up, and they are going to lie, and they're going to cram it down everybody's throats. As sad as that is to see that with the White House, it is the perfect metaphor for the way they are going to tear down every pillar of integrity, honesty, free and fair elections that remain. And they have every intention to do that. So in the interim, what do? You listen to pro-democratic podcasts, you amplify those, you comment on them in the algorithm. On social media, please, these people, these fascists, they own all of these social media sites. You have to share, you have to regram, you have to retweet, you have to stay engaged. It's going to take a lot of us, and we are in the fight of our lives, but every time you feel despair, just know that they know. That's why they did the whole propaganda stunt after the No Kings March. They know that they are underwater in everything. Authoritarians are not popular. Their policies are not popular. Dismantling democracy is not popular. And so we have to keep the pressure on.
Dare to look askance at a German. While race, whether as a homegrown ideology in Europe or an emergency explanation for shattering experiences, has always attracted the worst elements in Western civilization, bureaucracy was discovered by and first attracted the best and sometimes even the most clear-sighted strata of the European intelligentsia. The administrator, who ruled by reports and decrees in more hostile secrecy than any Oriental despot, grew out of a tradition of military discipline in the midst of ruthless and lawless men. For a long time he had lived by the honest, earnest boyhood ideals of a modern knight in shining armour sent to protect helpless and primitive people. And he fulfilled this task, for better or worse, as long as he moved in a world dominated by the old trinity, war, trade, and piracy, as Goethe put it, and not in a complicated game of far-reaching investment policies which demanded the domination of one people, not as before for the sake of its own riches, but for the sake of another country's wealth. Bureaucracy was the organisation of the great game of expansion, in which every area was considered a stepping stone to further involvements, and every people an instrument for further conquest. Although in the end racism and bureaucracy proved to be interrelated in many ways, they were discovered and developed independently. No one who in one way or the other was implicated in their perfection ever came to realise the full range of potentialities of power accumulation and destruction that this combination alone provided. Lord Cromer, who in Egypt changed from an ordinary British chargé d'affaires into an imperialist bureaucrat, would no more have dreamed of combining administration with massacre, administrative massacres, as Carthill bluntly put it 40 years later, than the race fanatics of South Africa thought of organising massacres for the purpose of establishing a circumscribed, rational political community, as the Nazis did in the extermination camps. 1. The phantom world of the Dark Continent. Up to the end of the last century, the colonial enterprises of the seafaring European peoples produced two outstanding forms of achievement. In recently discovered and sparsely populated territories, the
This is going to be
founding of
horrible, isn't it? This is going to be her apologist section.
Institutions of the mother country. And
to
in
power
well-known
through it.
exotic countries in the midst of foreign peoples, the establishment of maritime and trade stations, whose only
Canada
function
are
was to
it.
facilitate
Unfortunately,
a never peaceful
definitely
exchange
are
of the
racist.
treasures of the world. Colonization took place in America and Australia, the two continents that, without a culture and a history of their own, had fallen into the hands of Europeans. Trade stations were characteristic of Asia, where for centuries Europeans had shown no ambition for permanent rule or intentions of conquest, decimation of the native population, and permanent settlement. Both forms of overseas enterprise evolved in a long, steady process which extended over almost 4 centuries, during which the settlements gradually achieved independence and the possession of trade stations shifted among the nations according to their relative weakness or strength in Europe.
The only continent Europe had not touched in the course of its colonial history was the dark continent of Africa. Its northern shores, populated by Arab peoples and tribes, were well known and had belonged to the European sphere of influence in one way or another since the days of antiquity. Too well populated to attract settlers and too poor to be exploited, these regions suffered all kinds of foreign rule and anarchic neglect, but oddly enough never, after the decline of the Egyptian Empire and the destruction of Carthage, achieved authentic independence and reliable political organisation. European countries tried time and again, it is true, to reach beyond the Mediterranean to impose their rule on Arabic lands and their Christianity on Muslim peoples, but they never attempted to treat North African territories like overseas possessions. On the contrary, they frequently aspired to incorporate them into the respective mother country. This age-old tradition, still followed in recent times by Italy and France, was broken in the 80s when England went into Egypt to protect the Suez Canal, without any intention either of conquest or incorporation. The point is not that Egypt was wronged, but that England, a nation that did not lie on the shores of the Mediterranean, could not possibly have been interested in Egypt as such, but needed her only because there were treasures in India. While imperialism changed Egypt from a country occasionally coveted for her own sake into a military station for India and a stepping stone for further expansion, the exact opposite happened to South Africa. Since the 17th century, the significance of the Cape of Good Hope had depended upon India, the centre of colonial wealth. Any nation that established trade stations there needed a maritime station on the Cape, which was then abandoned when trade in India was liquidated. At the end of the 18th century, the British East India Company defeated Portugal, Holland and France and won a trade monopoly in India. The occupation of South Africa followed as a matter of course. If imperialism had simply continued the old trends of colonial trade, which is so frequently mistaken for imperialism, England would have liquidated her position in South Africa with the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869. Although today South Africa belongs to the Commonwealth, it was always different from the other dominions. Fertility and sparseness of population, the main prerequisites for definite settlement, were lacking, and a single effort to settle 5,000 unemployed Englishmen at the beginning of the 19th century proved a failure. Not only did the streams of emigrants from the British Isles consistently avoid South Africa throughout the 19th century, but South Africa is the only dominion from which a steady stream of emigrants has gone back to England in recent times. South Africa, which became the culture bed of imperialism, was never claimed by England's most radical defenders of Saxondom, and it did not figure in the visions of her most romantic dreamers of an Asiatic empire. This in itself shows how small the real influence of pre-imperialist colonial enterprise and overseas settlement was on the development of imperialism itself. If the Cape Colony had remained within the framework of pre-imperialist policies, it would have been abandoned at the exact moment when it actually became all-important. Although the discoveries of gold mines and diamond fields in the 70s and 80s would have had little consequence in themselves, if they had not accidentally acted as a catalytic agent for imperialist forces, it remains remarkable that the imperialists' claim to have found a permanent solution to the problem of superfluity was initially motivated by a rush for the most superfluous raw material on Earth. Gold hardly has a place in human production and is of no importance compared with iron, coal, oil, and rubber. Instead, it is the most ancient symbol of mere wealth. In its uselessness in industrial production, it bears an ironical resemblance to the superfluous money that financed the digging of gold and to the superfluous men who did the digging. To the imperialist pretense of having discovered a permanent saviour for a decadent society and antiquated political organisation, it added its own pretense of apparently eternal stability and independence of all functional determinants. It was significant that a society about to part with all traditional absolute values began to look for an absolute value in the world of economics, where indeed such a thing does not and cannot exist, since everything is functional by definition. This delusion of an absolute value has made the production of gold since ancient times the business of adventurers, gamblers, criminals, of elements outside the pale of normal, sane society. The new turn in the South African gold rush was that here the luck hunters were not distinctly outside civilized society, but on the contrary very clearly a byproduct of this society, an inevitable residue of the capitalist system, and even the representatives of an economy that relentlessly produced a superfluity of men and capital. The superfluous men, the bohemians of the four continents who came rushing down to the Cape, still had much in common with the old adventurers. They too felt, ship me somewhere east of Suez where the best is like the worst, where there aren't no 10 commandments and a man can raise a thirst. The difference was not their morality or immorality, but rather that the decision to join this crowd of all nations and colours was no longer up to them, that they had not stepped out of society but had been spat out by it, that they were not enterprising beyond the permitted limits of civilization, but simply victims without use or function. Their only choice had been a negative one, a decision against the workers' movements, in which the best of the superfluous men, or of those who were threatened with superfluity, established a kind of counter-society through which men could find their way back into a human world of fellowship and purpose. They were nothing of their own making. They were like living symbols of what had happened to them, living abstractions and witnesses of the absurdity of human institutions. They were not individuals like the old adventurers. They were shadows of events with which they had nothing to do. Like Mr. Kurtz in Conrad's Heart of Darkness, they were hollow to the core, reckless without hardihood, greedy without audacity, and cruel without courage.
That's it?
They believed in nothing and could get themselves to believe anything. Expelled from a world with accepted social values, they'd been thrown back upon themselves and still had nothing to fall back upon, except here and there a streak of talent, which made them as dangerous as Kurtz if they were ever allowed to return to their homelands. For the only talent that could possibly burgeon in their hollow souls was the gift of fascination, which makes a splendid leader of an extreme party. The more gifted were walking incarnations of resentment, like the German Karl Peters, possibly the model for Kurtz, who openly admitted that he was fed up with being counted among the pariahs and wanted to belong to a master race. But gifted or not, they were all game for anything, from pitch and toss to wilful murder, and to them their fellow men were no more one way or another than that fly there. Thus they brought with them, or they learned quickly, the code of manners which befitted the coming type of murderer to whom the only unforgivable sin is to lose his temper. There were, to be sure, authentic gentlemen among them, like Mr. Jones of Conrad's Victory, who out of boredom were willing to pay any price to inhabit the world of hazard and adventure, or like Mr. Haste, who was drunk with contempt for everything human until he drifted like a detached leaf without ever catching on to anything. They were irresistibly attracted by a world where everything was a joke, which could teach them the great joke that is the mastery of despair. The perfect gentleman and the perfect scoundrel came to know each other well in the great wild jungle without law, and they found themselves well matched in their enormous dissimilarity, identical souls in different disguises. We have seen the behaviour of high society during the Dreyfus affair, and watched Disraeli discover the social relationship between vice and crime. Here, too, we have essentially the same story of high society falling in love with its own underworld, and of the criminal feeling elevated when, by civilised coldness, the avoidance of unnecessary exertion
Oh my God, I haven't been here.
he's
Okay,
allowed
fine.
to create a vicious,
Good thing I went down here
refined
again.
atmosphere around his crimes. This refinement, the very contrast between
Shape
the
of
brutality of
Un.
the crime and the manner of carrying it out, becomes the bridge of deep understanding between himself and the perfect gentleman.
While focusing
With
soul,
what,
the
after
bearer
all,
will
took
take on a
decades
new
to achieve in
shape.
Europe, because of the delaying effect of social ethical
that sounds
values,
crazy.
exploded with the suddenness of a short circuit in the phantom world of colonial adventure. Outside all social restraint and hypocrisy, against the backdrop of native life, the gentleman and the criminal felt not only the closeness of men who share the same colour of skin, but the impact of a world of infinite possibilities for crimes committed in the spirit of play, for the combination of horror and laughter, that is, for the full realisation of their own phantom-like existence. Native life lent these ghost-like events a seeming guarantee against all consequences, because anyhow it looked to these men like a mere play of shadows. A play of shadows the dominant race could walk through unaffected and disregarded in the pursuit of its incomprehensible aims and needs. The world of native savages was a perfect setting for men who had escaped the reality of civilization. Under a merciless sun, surrounded by an entirely hostile nature, they were confronted with human beings who, living without the future of a purpose and the past of an accomplishment, were as incomprehensible as the inmates of a madhouse. The prehistoric man was cursing us, praying to us, welcoming us. Who could tell? We were cut off from the comprehension of our surroundings. We glided past like phantoms, wondering and secretly appalled, as sane men would be before an enthusiastic outbreak in a madhouse. We could not understand because we were too far and could not remember, because we were travelling in the night of first ages, of those ages that are gone, leaving hardly a sign and no memories. The earth seemed unearthly, and the men? No, they were not inhuman. Well, you know, that was the worst of it, this suspicion of their not being inhuman. It would come slowly to one. They howled and leaped and spun and made horrid faces. But what
Wait,
thrilled
what am
me
I
was
doing?
just the thought
No, I'm
of
going
their
backwards,
humanity,
alright.
like yours, the thought of your remote kinship with this wild and passionate uproar. That quotation was from Heart of Darkness. It is strange that, historically speaking, the existence of prehistoric men had so little influence on Western man before the scramble for Africa. It is, however, a matter of record that nothing much had happened as long as savage tribes, outnumbered by European settlers, had been exterminated, as long as shiploads of Negroes were imported as slaves into the Europe-determined world of the United States, or even as long as only individuals had
It's
drifted into
bedtime
the
for me.
interior of the dark continent, where the savages were numerous
Watching
enough
if
to
you want.
constitute a world of their own, a world of folly,